All right, how we doing, everybody? I'm Andy Malafrino. This is Drag the Lake. So I started noticing a thing. I was gonna save this for the pod, but I think it'll be good if we do a little video here, and then on the pod next week we go into a little bit more detail. But speaking of the pod, one just dropped today. So go check it the hell out. But I just noticed this, and I wanted to get a video out about it because I thought it was important, and we can go into more detail later on the pod and shit like that. But I thought it was important to talk about because I think I may have noticed the new Spotify Grift. I'm sure there's like bands and other commentators who have seen this before, but I just realized this to be a problem quite recently. So I thought, I'll add to the conversation. Hopefully, after this, more people can talk about this. We can all talk about it, and we can hopefully solve this problem because that's how you solve problems. You notice a problem, you say, hey, there's a problem. And then other people go, that is a problem. And then we solve the problem. But what I started noticing is, to put it in the short way, the new Spotify grift that I've been noticing is whoever it may be, they find these bands with sort of these like broad, nice sounding names like Oceano. Oceano is like a deathcore type band, but at the same time, like, say if there was a restaurant called Oceano, you'd be like, ooh, that's probably a lovely little Mediterranean spot or something like that. So, you know what I mean? Like, the name itself doesn't inherently breed, like, heaviness and chaos. For face value, the name sort of has a more gentler feel. And they take these bands with names like that, and they basically try to sneak in these, like, sleep sound albums. So here, I'll play a quick little track. So you hear that? That's like wind chimes and rain. And then and I don't know if this is copywritten, so I won't play too fucking much, so my video doesn't get blocked or anything like that. But you get the gist of it. They'll post these albums under already established bands that have these vague names. Like the other one I just noticed is Movements. They just did it with Movements. You know what I mean? A Movements is a similar type of vague name. Like if you listen to Movements, you know what they sound like. But at the same time, that could be the name of a fucking romance novel where some Fabio looking dude gets down and dirty in a housewife. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is from their standpoint, just by pure mechanics of it, I appreciate them. I respect the move to a degree, just out of pure cleverness. But from a standpoint of a dude making podcasts and YouTube videos talking about music, trying to get musicians their fair shake, get the money that they deserve, this does kind of annoy me. So I want to make a video. That's why I'm making this video, sort of pointing it out and just having because I think because a lot of people freak the fuck out about these problems, and they're like, Spotify needs to, which I do think Spotify should have a process where it's like you should be able to, I think like the first thing that pops to my mind on stuff like this is like, you should be able to claim a name on Spotify. And I think this should also apply to all the other apps, all the other streaming services in general. You should be able to claim a name. There should be like, if you set up the account, you should be able to claim that name. It's weird that like Oceano, they've been making music for like over a decade, I think. I forget exactly. They're a band I sort of discovered later in life. But yeah, since '09. So they've been making music for over a fucking like 2 decades at this point. No, a decade and a half. Sorry, but I'm bad at math. So, but they've been making music for like 15 years or so, probably a little bit longer than that. And you don't in that whole process, there's no point where you essentially like you're Oceano. You know what I mean? Or with a band like Movements, like how long have they been out? Like. If we look down here at albums, since 2017. So it's just that to me is kind of interesting. And, for all intents and purposes, I like Spotify. I'm more just making this video to be like, hey, here's some fucking holes in your system. Maybe patch these holes up. Like, I think the first move should be if you're a band and you're an established band, like I could see maybe if Oceano was some, small band that put out an EP and then never made any more music, they don't necessarily, just because they were first, maybe they don't necessarily get to claim Oceano. But if Oceano has been a band for a decade and a half, a little bit longer probably, you know what I mean? If you think about when they were actually formed versus when they put their album out, if they're a band for almost 2 decades, like how do they not just get to claim this? Like, how does another account from a different IP, now maybe they might use some technology, but I don't think it's that deep and intensive to like fake IP addresses, because at the same time we talk about this, we talk about the Spotify payouts and stuff like that all the time, and it is kind of funny because it looks like this sneaky little method to make a couple bucks, but at the same time, at the same time, you're also like, everyone always complains about how Spotify doesn't pay enough out, or if you don't think they don't pay enough out, it's still like a ratio of, I think we did the math. You got to get like 4,000. It's like 4,000 listens a month to get $1. It was something like, it was that kind of thing where you could be a band getting 1 million to 2 million monthly listens and you're still not paying your bills and shit like that. So it does seem like a very funny low stakes grift going on here. But regardless, yeah, the first step of it is it's odd to me that bands can't necessarily like claim their name, or it happens all the time in the real world. That's why like Kubla Khan had to call, or technically we all call him Kubla Khan, but they're technically Kubla Khan TX, because some other random band back in the day was like, we're Kubla Khan, and then Kubla Khan was like, who gives a fuck, and the band was like, we give a fuck, and they were like, all right, we're gonna throw TX on the end because who gives a shit, and then you go and you be successful and you be the bigger Kubla Khan just inherently. But yeah, and I also, the other element of it is, the reason I'm also making this video is because this is not the first time I saw this in like the past 2 months. There's been a couple times, I will give Spotify a little bit of props, because I've seen this about 4 or 5 times in the past month or so, which is another reason why I'm making a video. I'm sorry, just fucking my nose itches. Which is another reason why I want to make this video, because it's like it feels like it's a thing I've seen happen before, but it feels like it's like ramping up randomly right now, where, so what I do is like, to do these, to stay up to date with music, I follow all these bands on Spotify. So every week I go see what the new music is, and I'm scrolling through the stuff. And yeah, like I want to say like 4 or 5 times this month, I've clicked on bands like, wait, they just had an album come out. How are they, in this mix? Like, how are they putting out an album again? And it's sleep songs. Or the other thing I've noticed, it's just like, I can't remember which band it was, but it was like some like metalcore, hardcore, deathcore type band. And I saw that they had a new album, and I clicked on it, and it was like some J-pop star, which I find very interesting. Once again, it goes back to the thing where it's like, if you've established yourself as a like concrete musician, a professional musician, whatever you want to say, who's been steadily pumping out music on this app, once again, it's weird that you can't claim your name, and that someone else can just like type in the name and it pops up, and there's this confusion. Now, I will say this, Spotify does seem, because I was trying to look for the other 2 or 3, and I promise you they were there. I was trying to look for the other 2 or 3 albums where it happened this month, and I was like scrolling through and they weren't popping up. So I will say Spotify does have seems to have a good system to resolve the problem, which I appreciate. Because, a lot of these bands, they're not the biggest bands, and money's not as plentiful in these genres and shit like that. So to be able to figure this out in a timely manner, I appreciate that, because I'm in the game of like, I want these bands to make as much money as they possibly can. They're hardworking, yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, the fact that it happens in general, is odd to me. Now, if Spotify fixes this in the future, I'm not going to give a fuck. I just want to put this out there So to hopefully let people know, bands, if you don't know, let them know, fans, if you don't know, to let them know. And just to realize, like, yeah, look out for this, help the bands out. If you see some shit, either message the bands, let them know, do stuff like that. But I just wanted to make this video to let people know that this is a thing and it's happening, and it's probably not the biggest issue in the world because, like I said, it seems like for a lot of these bands, they resolve the issue in a timely manner. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're not trying some random fuck who copy and paste a bunch of sleep sounds. You don't want them making a little bit of money when they're trying to, like, grift you on being the band and shit like that. So, yeah, I would say Spotify, fix your shit. Let bands claim their fucking name. And then if you're a fan or you're in a band or a smaller band or whatever, be aware of this, you know, because that's the other reality of the situation. I think a lot of people look at problems as a whole, set it and forget it. And the actuality is it's like, no, you gotta kind of be a little bit vigilant. And that's not to sound dramatic or everything, but you know, it's like if you have a car, if you have a house or whatever the fuck, you do a walk around every so often. You make sure the car's okay. You make sure all the pipes are nice in the house and everything like that. So I think it's just a good reminder that there's always someone trying to, you know, fuck you a little bit, whether it be whether it be a big fuck or a little fuck. There's always someone out there trying to fuck you just a little bit or a lot of bit, whatever it may be. So and I don't say this as a 10, maybe like a 4. Stay vigilant. And yeah, have a great weekend, guys. I love y'all. Have a good one. Peace.